Do you have a package of survival seeds in your refrigerator? These pre-packaged collections of vegetable garden seeds have been getting a lot of attention lately. They're marketed as a must-have for tough times, but are they really your best plan? I think a package of survival seeds might be a good option, but perhaps it's not the best option. Stay tuned and find out why, and how you can be better prepared for whatever might come, from a personal crisis like a job loss to food shortages and supply chain issues. Let's dig in. Welcome to episode 13 of Homegrown, Your Backyard Garden podcast. I'm your host, Kathy Rogers, and together we'll explore growing a successful vegetable garden no matter where you live. Today we're addressing a hot topic, survival seeds, those prepackaged collections of vegetable garden seeds that are marketed as a must-have for uncertain times. You might have seen these seed packages advertised online. The premise is that you'll keep these prepackaged seed kits safely stored away until you need them, and after some sort of disaster or other, you can get them out of wherever you're storing them and start growing your family's food. Now, I'm not discounting the possibility of a need for a cache of garden seeds. In fact, seed banks are a common form of a garden seed cache. Seed banks are places where seeds are kept safe to make sure we can grow these plants in the future, even if our crops fail. It's like having extra seeds just in case. Many seed banks are large facilities with huge amounts of all kinds of seeds. Many libraries have a seed bank. Maybe there's even one near you. But you can have your own personal seed bank, and I do think you should have a personal seed bank that contains the seeds that you plant each year. Our parents and grandparents lived through the Great Depression and relied heavily on homegrown food to make ends meet and to keep their families fed. They needed seeds to make that happen, of course, and they had their own personal seed banks, even though they didn't call it that. During World War I and World War II, Victory Gardens flourished in American backyards to support the war effort and to help avoid food rationing, and to deal with food rationing when it did happen. Homegrown food is what kept families fed. Those were real emergencies, and there will probably be emergencies again. Whether it's a national or a personal crisis, homegrown food will save you money and supplement your diet. I'm all for it, and I agree with the idea of having seeds in reserve. But I think we should be growing our food now and not waiting for an emergency to start gardening. And that's what we're talking about today, why you should be gardening now and not waiting until a crisis, when you will whip out that package of survival seeds and save the day. Survival seed packages do have some advantages. They're conveniently packaged for you, they contain a variety of vegetable seeds, and are often already packaged in Mylar bags for long-term storage. But everything has disadvantages too, right? For instance, those vegetables may not grow well in your climate and your soil. Your family might not like all of the vegetables included. And seed viability decreases over time, even with proper storage. Most companies who put these packages together advertise them as having a long shelf life. It's true that storing your seeds properly in a cool, dark place can double their lifespan. One advertisement recommends freezing your package of survival seeds, which they say might extend their shelf life up to as much as 15 to 25 years. Seed viability literally means the ability to survive. Seeds have a lifespan, during which they will germinate and grow, but over time, all seeds lose some of that ability and that energy, no matter how well they're stored. Eventually, seeds die, and they lose that energy that allows them to grow. Yes, the life expectancy of seeds can be extended by storing them properly, but eventually their germination rate will be reduced to the point that they won't grow well or even at all. To protect your seeds' viability, whether you have a survival seed package or you're storing seeds that are left over from earlier this year, store them in a cool, dark place, away from moisture, away from light, and safe from rodents. The back of the bottom shelf of your refrigerator is an ideal place if you have enough room. Avoid storing your seeds in the refrigerator door or in the crisper drawer, where the temperature and humidity are more likely to fluctuate. This is good advice no matter how long you intend to store seeds. even if you're just storing leftover spring seeds to plant in your fall garden. In addition, seeds for each species of vegetable, tomatoes, peppers, lettuce, and so on, each one has their own average lifespan. Some seeds have a shorter lifespan than others. Okra, corn, and onion seeds are among those with shorter viability. Peas, beans, and carrot seeds last a bit longer, and the seeds with the highest vigor and the longest shelf life include cucumbers, melons, and tomatoes. So the longer you store your seeds, even in the best of conditions, their germination rates will lessen, and eventually, as we said, those seeds will lose their viability and they won't sprout at all. So my advice is this: don't wait for a crisis or an emergency to begin gardening. Instead, start now. Growing a garden isn't always as easy as throwing seeds in the ground and harvesting bushels of produce in a few months. Gardening takes time to learn what each type of vegetable plant needs, when to plant them, and how to deal with insects and even four-legged pests like rabbit and deer. Plus, building healthy soil takes time. We've moved many times, and I know from experience that the success of a first-year garden can be disappointing. You need time to build up the health of your soil by adding compost and other organic matter, and by fixing any mineral deficiencies and pH imbalances in your soil. Building a garden infrastructure also takes time and effort. Even if you plan to garden in the ground, which is the cheapest of all methods, you'll need to till the soil and build up its health unless you happen to live in a really good, fertile area. If you plan to plant in containers, you'll need to gather them together, plus the soil to go in them. If you plan to use raised garden beds, they will need to be built and filled. I use raised beds because of the Bermuda grass that grows so well here in the South. I tried for years to garden in the ground, and every year the same thing happened. That Bermuda grass took over and choked out my plants before the middle of summer even arrived. No amount of weeding helped to keep it under control. I really, really hate Bermuda grass. Instead of starting a garden during a crisis, when you really need to be successful, planting a garden now will let you ease into things without the pressure. By starting small, you can spread the cost of the infrastructure over a period of time. You can start with foods that you know your family will eat, and learn how to grow those plants successfully before branching out into other types of vegetables. You'll learn what grows well in your climate and what doesn't, and every year you'll build up your soil's health. For instance, okra grows really well here, but neither the chief nor I like okra, so I don't waste space on it. And I've pretty much given up growing summer squash because I always lose the battle against squash bugs. Your garden will probably look completely different from mine, depending on where you live and your family's tastes, and a couple of gardening seasons will help you refine your own garden plan. You might even decide that some vegetables are just too fussy to bother growing. You'll learn how to deal with insect pests, or maybe like me, you'll just give up on growing squash. Gardening now is also the best way to get around that problem of seed viability and shelf life. When you save seeds from this year's garden to plant in next year's garden, the issue of seed viability is no longer an issue at all. You'll probably already have a few packets of seeds stored away. An open packet of lettuce seeds from this year's garden that you didn't use up, some tomato seeds because you like to grow just a couple of plants of several varieties, and maybe a packet of seeds that you couldn't resist buying and you plan to plant them next year. Those seeds will be viable for several years to come, and if you're growing those during an emergency, you'll have time to learn how to save your own seeds to replace them. I do believe that having a package of survival seeds in your refrigerator is a hedge against seed shortages too. But I think it's good to have packets of your favorite seed varieties as well. You should plant heirloom varieties if you plan to save seeds. Heirloom seeds will grow true to type and consistently produce the same plants every year, unlike hybrid seeds, which can produce throwbacks. You know, vegetables that resemble their distant ancestors more than the plants that you grew last year. We talked about the difference between heirloom and hybrid seeds in episode 10 of Homegrown, about tomato seeds in particular, but it applies to all vegetables. Seeds from a hybrid variety may not produce the same kind of tomato that you saved the seeds from. So heirloom seeds are the best for seed saving. Seed packets are clearly marked with this information, whether the variety is a hybrid or an heirloom. And then, what about these possible situations? If a crisis were to happen in August, or in November, it's too late in the year to start a garden. But if you already have a garden, you'll simply harvest your food when it's ready. You might already have potatoes stashed away from this year's harvest, or you might have frozen your abundance of produce from earlier in the year. A job loss might mean you wouldn't have enough money to even start a new garden. But if you already have a garden in place, that's not a problem. Instead, by gardening now, you'll be able to simply continue living life, growing healthy, organic food in your backyard garden that will help to feed your family no matter what happens. Food that grows well in your climate and in your own garden. Food that your family likes and that you know how to grow, how to prepare, and even how to preserve. In conclusion, I encourage you to start gardening now or to keep it up, even if you have a package of survival seeds stored away. Start small so you won't be overwhelmed. Learn which seeds grow well in your climate and in your garden. Build up good soil over time. Focus on heirloom varieties so you can save seeds. Experiment with different gardening techniques and find out what works best for you. Most importantly, enjoy the process and celebrate your successes and savor every bite of what you've grown. You'll find information on container gardening and on raised bed gardening on my website, Oak Hill Homestead, as well as growing guides for many popular vegetables and fruits that enable you to plant, grow, and harvest your vegetables. Check it out at oakhillhomestead.com. Be sure to subscribe to Homegrown so you won't miss a single episode. Share your favorite episodes with your friends. As always, you'll find the link to the transcript of this episode in the description. Thank you for listening today, and I'll see you here next time on Homegrown, your backyard garden podcast.